Starliner Media. Starliner Media presents Music Night at the Majestic with your host, Michael Boswell. Brought to you by
OutdoorTVExperts.com. Everyone is spending more time at home these days, so wouldn't it be nice to watch a game, a movie, or even better, a concert while sitting on your patio or relaxing in your pool? Visit OutdoorTVExperts.com and use the Music Night discount to receive free shipping. OutdoorTVExperts.com, OutdoorTVExperts.com.
Okay, Michael, my part is done. Whether the rest of the show is any good is entirely up to you.
All right, we are here with Mr. Paul Carrack. Paul, it is a real treat to have you on the show.
Yeah, how are you doing?
Oh, so far so good.
Wouldn't mind one of them tellies, I'll tell you.
Especially like a nice 75-inch put out there. You could watch the game and life.
You know what? We even thought about it this summer because mercifully, with all the lockdown and all that and the thing that and we were very lucky. We just live a little bit out of town and we have a nice garden, and we thought, oh, it would be great to have have an outdoor TV. But since then the weather's changed and it looks like winter already today. So
well, it's only supposed to be like a high. I think that the warmest day this coming week for us is 75.
Oh, well, I'd settle for that. But anyway, I digress.
Probably a little bit warmer what you've got going on.
It certainly is, yeah. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, tell you what, yeah, one of the things that, when I would tell people that you were going to be the guest, on this edition of the show was, they were amazed at, they knew your singles. They knew, how long. But then when we talk about all the other things, their jaws would basically drop, and it was just like, wow, we had no idea. So we'll get into all that for folks, because I mean, you've had the most amazing career, the people you've played, the things you've experienced, songs you've written, but that all had to start somewhere. And we had a question from John in South Carolina who wanted to know, did you come from a musical family? Were you, like a 3-year-old who ran into the kitchen one day and told everybody, hey, I'm going to be a music star?
No, I didn't do that, but never in my wildest dreams. But no, my dad's side of the family were musical. Definitely. I mean, my grandmother played piano, and my aunt played also. I think my dad dabbled a little bit in with drums and stuff. And he always encouraged myself and my brother in music, but I never had any kind of formal education at all, in no musical education. We lived in a very small place. We lived at the back of a shop. My father was a painter and decorator, a working guy, and my mum ran the shop that sold wallpaper and paint. And we lived in one room at the back, and we had 2 bedrooms and an attic. And in that attic, I discovered at an early age there was an old accordion and some bits of drums. And as I said, my father sort of encouraged our musical interests, but it was nothing serious. And as I say, I never had any formal education at all. But sadly, my father died when I was only 11 years old, and so sadly that influence went. My mother didn't really encourage the music thing, especially not trying to make a living out of it, which I, in my teens, she thought that was absolutely crazy. But I think there's definitely musical genes in there, is the short answer to what I was rambling on about.
Well, it sounds to me like that the working class upbringing that you had definitely, you stuck to those roots, even though you were in what is high profile business, to
Yes.
where yeah, you were, always working, whether it was solo or with another group or whatever. So is that where that comes from?
The work ethic aspect.
Yes.
Yeah, most definitely. My folks were hardworking people. They'd come from pretty poor backgrounds, especially my mum. Um, she had such a tough beginning. I mean, she was one of six kids. My grandfather on that side, died very young, 36, I think he was, left my grandmother with six kids. Of course, back in those days, there was no welfare of any kind. So, the eldest boy started full-time work at 14. My granny, she took in washing and did any kind of work she could get, help, working for people, cleaning, that sort of stuff. Somehow or other, they started to work, her and the kids, in a newsagent's shop in the center of a rough old part of Sheffield, which is where I'm from. And somehow or other, they got to take over this small business, this newspaper shop, just sold newspaper cigarettes to the people going to work in the factories down there. And they worked like, they all worked really hard, but they were lovely people. They were very honest people, very tight, family orientated. And as I say, my father also, he worked very, very hard as a self-employed guy. Which was fairly unusual in Sheffield because a lot of people were involved in the heavy industry, and so to be a self-employed guy was, I think there's a bit of that rubs off on me too. So tell me if I'm going rambling too much with these answers, by the way.
No, no. I mean, you're giving everybody background. Now, was
Yeah.
there a defining moment for you when, what you're used to growing up is, trades, if you will, and then you end up going off on the musical path? Was there a defining moment where you looked around and said, "Okay, you know what? This this is what I need to do to make me happy."
Well, yeah, I decided pretty early on, actually, because I was playing in semi-pro bands when I was still at school. I wasn't academically minded at all. I didn't enjoy school. I wasn't stupid, but I didn't find schoolwork particularly interesting or easy. I found it quite difficult to keep up with all the homework and all that sort of stuff. So I'd already decided I just wanted to be in a band. And there were a lot of bands around in those days in Sheffield, in all the cities, because there were so many places to play, so there'd be tons of bands. They just had their little van with their gear, and they'd be playing every night of the week, more or less. So, and I wanted to be one of those guys. So I can think of another couple of defining moments. I mean, when we were thinking of leaving school, and we had to go and see the educational officer, and he took us for a visit down the local coal mine. And that helped me a little bit to learn how to play something, because I didn't want to go down the coal mine. It was a very scary experience. I didn't fancy that at all. But as I
I
said,
would think that, I would say, I think being in a club, full of girls, would be more enticing than, working out at a coal mine.
absolutely. And I was just a skinny, short guy. So anything I could do to help me seem slightly more attractive to the opposite sex, I was up for, So I did have visions back then of, being a famous pop star, but that soon rubbed off. I soon realized that wasn't going to happen.
Well, yeah, if I recall, I'd seen an interview with you many years ago, and you were saying that, yeah, your first band was actually kind of a jazz influenced, yeah, rock band, and then you transitioned from that to pub rock with Ace. Now, how did that all come about?
Well, that wouldn't have been my first band because, as I say, I was playing in bands on leaving school, and we were covers. We were actually, I was in a soul band, and we just played soul covers, the usual suspects, Sam and Dave, Eddie Floyd, Otis Redding, all that stuff. And then I was in another band. We went off to Germany for a while, which is what a lot of the bands did back then. Even, the Beatles, of course, most famously plowed that furrow. We were a few years after that, to be honest, but we did that where we played covers all night in Hamburg. And we met up with it because there were two bands playing in this one club in Hamburg, the Top 10 Club. And these other guys in this other band we thought they were great. And they had a couple of multi-instrumentalists, played saxophones. And we used to hang out together and listen to music a lot. And we decided to join up with them and go for this sort of progressive rock, which is talk about running before you can crawl, because we were pretty terrible, but we were earnest and we really believed it and we really meant it, but it's pretty awful. So we made a couple of albums, but please don't look them up, whatever you do. They were pretty embarrassing, but then the transition, things changed in I think a lot of people realized with music that the progressive thing, people got a little tired of the self-indulgence and the pomposity. And a lot of guys started getting back to just playing rock and roll for fun. And that happened in London around the early 70s. A lot of bands just playing for beer money. And by this time, the progressive band had fizzled out. So we formed this little band called Ace. And we started to play in the pubs around London. And incredibly, managed to get signed up to a very small record label. A few of the other pub rock bands that got signed up. We thought we'd missed the boat, but we eventually got signed up. And we went down to a studio in Wales called Rockfield. It's now quite legendary, but back then it was just a farm. And we made our album in a converted cowshed, basically. And but one of the songs we recorded was, of course, How Long, which is one of the first songs I had written. And that somehow or other became a bit of a hit, but it still hangs around to this day.
Yeah, I mean that's a staple. I don't care where you go, that song, invariably pops up somewhere.
Well, it's true. I mean, it's amazing, really, because it's a very simple song. But I think back in those days, and for a good while, when a song hit, it would stick, and that's why a lot of those songs still hang around. But it seems more fleeting these days. When the bands have their records, they're here today, kind of gone tomorrow. But we were fortunate in a way to live in that era when maybe because there wasn't so much music everywhere you turn. So that's one of the songs that it's stuck. I love it. I love singing it.
Yeah,
I wish I'd signed a better contract, but that's another story.
Oh, feel free. Well, why did you tell us that? And then what was the impetus for the song? I've heard a couple of different things, but what's the truth behind that record?
It's fairly well documented, but as I said, we had this little struggling pub band, Ace, and some friends of ours who were doing rather better than us. They had a record deal and they were getting the tours of and everything, and bass player. So that's the story. And we were a bit miffed about this, but to be honest. And how long's this been going on? They were trying to coax him with a steady wage of probably about 10 or 15 quid a week, which was useful money back then.
Right.
So
well, after Ace,
yeah.
then what direction did you head then?
Well, we had that one big old hit, and we never really, for one reason or another, we never really followed it up. So that band, I mean, it was 1975 in America when that was a hit, and by 1978 we kind of given up the ghost because we spent quite a lot of time in America actually, and lived over on the West Coast, and we went back to London, and the whole scene had changed. You know, the whole scene. There's the whole new wave was kicking off, you know, with punk rock and the new wave or whatever you call it. And we thought, well, that's it. It's over. You know, maybe I'm going to need to go down that coal mine. I don't know. But so it just kind of kept my head down and kept trying to improve as a musician. And I got a few studio sessions, that kind of thing, hanging out with those studio players. So there was a lot more studio work back then. And I was bluffing away like mad because I'd only really been in that, you know, those early bands. So I wasn't that proficient, but I think I have always had good ears and good instincts. So I just saw playing those sessions as a way of learning, really.
Gotcha. Now you in that time you played with Frankie Miller and
Yeah.
Roxy Music, correct?
Yeah, that would be about that time. Yeah. Late 70s. And Frankie, a fantastic singer, you know, little Scottish guy, shorter than me actually, and but terrifying when he when he was on it. You know, he was he's fantastic. Sadly, he's not in great health these days, but back then, um, I was really pleased to be in his band for a short while and made some recordings, wrote some songs with him. And I think he's probably one of the best rock singers to come out of, I almost said England, which he would have killed me because he's obviously he's from Glasgow in Scotland. But and then the Roxy thing just came out of the blue. Actually, those session guys I was telling you about, who I was hanging out with, we had a little band doing our own stuff, solely kind of stuff. But these guys were also instrumental in playing on Brian Ferry on his solo records. And Roxy, for whatever reason, decided they were getting back together, but they wanted to use these guys from that, the guys I was telling you about. So they actually brought me into the fold, and that's how I got to play on the Roxy records. And I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. It was a lot less snobby than it was pop, and I thought, oh, this is great. This is fun. So I went on the road with them. I made 2 or 3 albums with them, just playing keyboards, and after that, funnily enough, that kind of got me back in the swim of things a little bit. And that's when I got a call from Squeeze to see if I wanted to. They needed a keyboard player, and the Roxy thing had sort of run its little course. And so I finished up joining. Well, I didn't realize I was joining Squeeze. I thought I was just down there to play on their album, But then the next one thing led to another, and the next, I'd sung this song on the album, "Tempted," and so they said, "Well, you better come on the road with us." So that's how that happened.
All right. Now, in this time, you had your first solo album, and then your second solo album that had "I Need You," and you done that with Nick Lowe. And I know you've worked with Nick on a lot of stuff. How did you and Nick come to meet and end up working with each other?
Well, no, I'd known Nick from those earlier pub rock days. He was in a band called Brinsley Sports, and that's when I, got to know him a little bit. And then, of course, as I say, we had the big hit, spent a lot of time in America, came back to the UK, and it's all punk, and we're thinking, oh, my goodness. But, Nick was right in there producing records for people like Elvis Costello and The Damned and people like this. So and there was another character in this scenario, was a guy called Jake Riviera, he founded Stiff Records, which again was the punk label, and of course he managed Nick. And basically, Jake used to be a roadie for one of these bands, and he became this incredible force in the independent record business. So, and he had taken on Squeeze. He was managing Squeeze, and they were looking for a keyboard player because Jules Holland had left the band, and he said, well, what about Paul Carrack? Because, he's been playing with Roxy music and he's back in town. So that's how that came about. Now, you'll have to tell me if this is too minute detail for your listeners.
No, you know what? We build the show as this is a program for people who love music by people who love music. So, our viewers, they can't get enough of the behind the scenes info, the details stuff. So you're giving them exactly what they want. So this is great. So now the another band that you had played with was Mike and the Mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
And now, how did that come about, working with Mike Rutherford?
Well, let me get the chronology right, because I think I was with Squeeze for about a year, and I had a great time. But I was basically the keyboard, playing keyboards. I was the keyboard player, apart from singing that one song, which was a bit of a breakthrough for them in the US, Tempted. But, I realized that, it was a bit of an easy ride in some respects because, I wasn't pushing myself, but I did in my heart of hearts think I was a singer-songwriter, So I was kind of persuaded by a few friends and people that, I should leave Squeeze and try and do things. And I wanted to work with Nick Lowe. That was another reason. So Nick produced an album for me called Suburban Voodoo. It's a pretty wild record for me. But and so Nick and I had this relationship. We both would either front the band. It would either be the Nick Lowe band or the Paul Carrack band, depending who had an album out at the time. And that was also a lot of fun. But and we did a lot of tours, a lot of bus tours, often as the opening act for people like, we opened up for Tom Petty on several tours, the Cars, people like this. And I think eventually we decided it'd run its course, and everybody, I think Nick felt it was a bit of a burden. So that fizzled out, and I just started again. Oh, but coincidentally, towards the end of that, coming to its conclusion, I got a call from Mike Rutherford to see if I'd like to go down. He was making an album. So Mike Rutherford is the guitar player from Genesis, for anybody who doesn't know. And Phil Collins was having this phenomenal, successful solo career. And I think Mike was a bit of a loose end, and he decided he was going to make a solo record, but he didn't want to sing. So he got myself and a couple of other guys, notably a guy called Paul Young, not to be confused with there's two Paul Young. So we were the designated singers who came in, and I went down and recorded some stuff with Mike. The first thing I recorded was a song called Silent Running, or a lot of people call it Can You Hear Me? So that was the first thing I recorded with Mike. I recorded 3 or 4 songs, and I thought, oh, that sounds great to me. It was so different from Nick Lowe and the stuff we'd been doing, which was very low-tech, rough rockabilly, rock and roll, and then Mike was going for the more polished pop synth stuff. And so I thought that was very interesting. So we made the recordings. I forgot about it, and then a few months later it was released, and sort of instantly, probably because of Mike's infrastructure and everything with Genesis and everything, it got it kind of took off. So Mike was in a position to be able to put the studio band together to become, a unit.
All right. And then you followed that back with your biggest solo success. After that, uh,
Mm.
Don't Shed a Tear, all those records. What was that like when you go from once again being you were part of a group, even though you're singing lead on tracks, to now you're back to being a solo. That actually kind of ties in with one of the questions that we received. Jamie in Colorado had written in and asked, which do you enjoy more? The solo gig or being a part of a band. I mean, you're part of a band either way, but is it like your band or when you're part of another existing deal?
The obvious answer is that they're both great. It's just great to have them both. It's made for an unusual career, because I'm quite happy to adapt to the sideman situation. In some ways, it's easier. There's less pressure, but as I said earlier, in my heart of hearts, I always fancied myself as a singer and a singer-songwriter. So, you have to stick your head over the parapet sometimes. And so I've been very fortunate, as I say, it's just important, apart from anything else, to keep a roof over my family's head. I had 4 kids. They're all grown up now. But I was up for any kind of music and just being involved and surviving, to be honest. But I don't know if I really had I was going to say a rude word, but this is a family show, so I won't say, but the confidence to really be that solo guy. I didn't really look the part. I look more the part now in my 60s than I did when I was, 30 and my hair was falling out. So I always found that a difficult aspect of the pop business, especially when MTV came in and it was all videos and all this. It was like, oh dear. But I did want to sing,
Mhm.
and so, but being the sideman thing, that has took me to some great places. I mean, most recently, in recent years, last 6-7 years, been playing with Eric Clapton in his band, and that's just been another fantastic episode in this weird career. So I've really enjoyed that aspect of it, and it's been good for me in many ways. I think it's been good for my self-esteem as a player, and to be in that fold of world-class musicians, and accepted and respected. But as I say, I still keep trying to make new records and trying to leave my mark.
Yeah, well, speaking of new records, you have a new one coming out on October 3rd.
There is a new album coming out. It's a bit of we're not pushing it hard because it's a bit of a side project. I mean, I've made a number of albums myself as solo artist, and they've been getting more and more accepted, particularly in the UK and Europe. It's tough because we're independent. I have my own little label. Tough to crack America, independently. It's pretty much impossible, really. But we've done real well in UK and Europe. But I've also still continuing the side projects, and this album that's coming out October 3rd is called Another Side of Paul Carrack, and I made it with sort of a jazz orchestra in they're from Germany, actually. They're a big band, a swing band, really. And I got to know them when they invited me to make a Christmas album of Christmas, swing stuff, which was great fun, and I enjoyed it. Saw it as another challenge. And we've done a few other projects since. So a couple of years ago, they had me over there to do a TV special, and we recorded live. It was the big band and a 12-piece string section. Me stood in the middle of the room, so it's all recorded live. And the repertoire was a bit, quite diverse. We did a couple of, you know, swing type numbers. We did a couple of my numbers. We did a Nick Lowe song. We did a Danny Boy version. So, and they filmed it and everything. It went out on TV and everybody thought it was great. And they gave me the rights to record it as a CD. So that's the one that's coming out in October the 3rd. There's a few clips from the TV show. I think my favorite one is Sticks and Stones. It's an old Ray Charles song. Mm-hmm. And that's out there on YouTube and what have you. So it's worth a look. But I'm kind of reluctant to say this is my new album because it is a side issue and it's confusing enough already, all the different things I've done. But it's a quality record. It's just if you like that kind of thing, basically, you know.
Well, you know, as we've said, I mean, your career has been so circuitous. You've gone places, you know, and experienced things in so many different capacities. When you look back, you know, when you were, you know, in those early, you know, kid bands, youth bands, did you have any idea that you would get to experience? Did you even dream of being able to experience the things that you have done?
No, obviously not. No, I couldn't see any further than the end of my nose, you know, just the next gig. So I suppose you start off and you hope it's all going to happen. Something's going to happen. One of the bands will take off or something. But really, I wasn't cut out for that or fame or anything like that. So I was quite happy as long as I was, you know, moving along and playing with, you know, some, you know, great people and enjoyment. As I say, it was important to keep a roof over our heads and just about managed that. But, you know, a lot of ups and downs, obviously. But it's a very precarious life, you know, and I consider myself to be one of the very fortunate people that has made a long career from it. And the fact that it's getting even better in a lot of ways, you know, I'm more established now as a solo artist. I get to play with Eric Clapton. I mean, well, I was expecting a big kick in the backside at some point, and it happened this year with the coronavirus. You know, I thought something's got to happen. This is all going too well, you know, and there we go. So that was a shame because we lost a whole year of work this year.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But you know, on the upside, I've got my little studio at home. I've been putting the time to good use, and we hope it's gonna, you know, things are gonna get better.
Absolutely. Well, believe it or not, we are actually past our 30 minutes.
Are we? Okay.
For the show. So
I thought
we covered a lot of ground. Sadly, we didn't get to all the questions that people had. So we had, you know, quite a few. So I hope you've enjoyed your time here on the show, Paul.
Enjoyed my time talking about myself. Yeah. No, I have. Well, good luck with everything. I hope there's a few people tune in. Oh, can I just mention, though, and I think quite important, if we can get this in, we can lose some of that other stuff. But so my band, my touring band, and the band that make my normal records, that's came, you know, in March, the last gig we did in London. That was the end of our tour. We've been off the road since, which has been tough for, you know, band, crew, everybody. But in October, so we'll have to keep you posted about the date. But we are taking a theatre with our full production, the full band, the full lights, everything, and this will be a streamed concert. Unfortunately, there'll be no audience, but you know, for us, it's a new thing. I haven't done anything from my kitchen. You know, this is going to be the proper job, exactly as we were playing on the tour, and it'll be streamed. And we hope it'll be pay-per-view, but we hope that some of our fans in America, of which we do have some, apparently, we hope they'll tune in and support us on that one. So that'll be in October. We'll be putting all the stuff out on Facebook and what have you, telling everybody about it.
All right.
Sorry, we're well over our time limit now.
No, don't worry about it. It's, like I say, yeah, you've given the fans exactly what our viewers are looking for. So,
Okay, good.
But again, thank you for being so gracious with your time, Paul. I truly appreciate it. Wish we had time to get to all the other questions, but maybe if you've got time in the future and you're bored, you want to sit in with us,
Okay.
we'd be more than happy to have you.
All right, lovely. All right then, Michael, all the best.
Likewise.
And don't forget, everybody, tune into that YouTube
Absolutely.
thing.
Tell you what, we'll post on the Music Night page the info with a link to it
Fantastic.
so people can find you.
Fantastic. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everybody, for watching Music Night.
This has been Music Night at the Majestic with Michael Boswell. If you enjoyed this edition of Music Night at the Majestic, follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and at musicnight.net. Music Night at the Majestic is a copyright production of Starliner Media. Any use of the accounts and descriptions of this program, its audio or visual content, without the express written consent of Starliner Media is prohibited. Thank you for joining us this evening. We'll see you next time for Music Night at the Majestic. This is your announcer speaking. Starliner Media.